So today we are going to discuss about the input and interaction part in the fifth module. So to start with, the input and interaction deals with what kind of input we can have, what kind of interaction we can have in our computer graphics, how do we treat input in our OpenGL, and all that we are going to look at. How to use input devices, or how to make use of interaction in your computer graphics application is what we will be looking at. So today we will see different input devices and then different input modes, and then we will look at something called as callback mechanisms. What exactly is an input device? What is an input device? People answer. Some feature into machine readable form. Some input feature. What do you mean by input feature? Okay, I get the context, Ashwin, but yeah, events. Okay, always events. Touch, key press, etc. Communicate to the machine. Something that is an input. Krishna, I am asking about input device anyway. Okay, the device which says whatever you are telling is, which does whatever you are telling is. Yeah. Okay, something that user wants to communicate to the machine. Okay, now tell me, what are all input devices that you know? Receive command from user. Okay, mic, mouse. Yeah. Okay, scanner. Anything else? Graphic tablet, joystick. Yeah, joystick. Yes. So, okay, you guys know about all these light pen. Yes. What exactly is light pen, Aditya? Nice. Somebody is talking about light pen. You guys know about light pen? Stylus. Stylus is different from light pen. Stylus is a blind device. It is used as input. We can touch the screen. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Fine. Now you see, tell me one thing. Using mouse, let's take for example mouse. Okay, what are inputs that your computer gets? What is the input that your computer gets? Using keyboard, we know it's standard. It gets ASCII characters, it gets numbers, alphabets, special key, special symbols, and etc. Clicks, coordinates of the screen to click. Will it always be on click? Displacement, yes. Or we would rather say, we can also, yeah, key states, graphical input. What do you mean by graphical input, Likit? XY coordinates, key states. Forget about OpenGL context now. I want you to think about pure mouse. XY coordinates and key states, yes, that is with respect to the cube program what we discussed, Ashwin. Generally, I am talking about. What are the kinds of inputs that we actually capture using mouse? Okay, coordinates, yes. Scroll, yes. See, using mouse, we can capture the types of inputs. What are the types of inputs we can capture? Number one, the position at the click. That is, if the position can be screen position, screen coordinate, that is with respect to the left top corner, right? So where have I clicked? Like that, or the position might be with respect to world coordinates, meaning to say if I click in the screen, where exactly is that position is transformed in the world, the position, the world, the what I have taken, what is the position of that in the click. It can be that, right? It can be the scroll, as you guys told. Apart from that, without clip, right, without click, if I just move my mouse like this, I'm still capturing the positions, right? I might ignore it, I might take it, that is a different thing. But at every time I move my cursor, that captures the position of my pointing device. Yes or no? Yeah. Apart from that, if you have noticed or not, I also capture the velocity. I move faster, I move slower. I can do that also, right? And I can scroll my mouse scroll button faster. I can press and hold and just pull it down. I can capture all these various kinds of input using just mouse device. Yes or no? So these variety of types of input what we are talking about now, right? These are the types of inputs that the application program what you are having, right? The application program is bothered about. Application program is actually, it need not to bother about what is the type of physical device you're using. It might be mouse, it might be probably a trackball. Trackball, I'll explain you how the trackball looks like. It can be a stylus. It doesn't matter. What matters, for application program, what matters is what type of input does it get, right? Apart from that, we can also classify these objects based on its physical layout. It can be keyboard, it can be mouse and all this. So based on these types of characteristics, right, we can actually classify our input devices. Okay. So the devices which are provides input to your application program in computer graphics is treated as an input device. Now, so far we have discussed about two kinds of properties. One is called physical property. Physical property is in what is the type of the device. Is it mouse? It is keyboard? Is it trackball? It depends on the physical aspects of the device. Okay. The other thing is the logical property. Logical property is what your application program sees or receives as an input. It can be a position, or see when I click here, it might the application program might get the position of the object, position on the screen or in the world coordinates. Or if I click, let us say in my screen I have multiple objects like this. If I click on this object, my application program would have programmed such a way that on the click it would get the identifier of the object on which the mouse is clicked. It's more like a pick and drop kind of a thing. I can pick it up by clicking on it. When I click on it, if this object has to be picked up, then application program should be able to identify this object what the mouse is pointing to. That it can be the identifier of the object that the API is concerned about. So like this, these things are basically logical properties. Based on what kind of properties we look into, we can categorize our input devices into two types of devices. One is called as physical input device, the other one is called as logical input device. We will look at these two kinds of input devices now. The physical devices are these. You guys have almost known about it. The mouse or the trackball, they are basically relative positioning devices. Your trackball is similar to your mouse. If you would have seen olden days mouse, there used to be a ball instead of the laser below the mouse that could capture the motion and velocity of the mouse, right? So this trackball is basically will have a ball attached here, right? You can move this ball in different directions to change the pointing position, and of course you can capture the inputs based on these buttons if you want to. So that's the trackball. So basically these two devices capture the input in a 2D plane, and the position that returns to the API or that returns back to the operating system can be basically a position in the 2D plane that it considers, and that will be captured back into your screen position. Then we have data tablet. Data tablet is, you can consider your mobile phones or your any tablets that you have. You can use stylus or your finger nowadays, right? Basically it captures the absolute position of where you have touched the screen, right? And that position will be captured using your data tablet. And then you have your light pen. This light pen basically is a photosensitive pen. Basically it is sensitive towards the color or the light that is emitted on this CRT monitor. When you point a light pen on the screen over here, if the threshold of the light that comes here is above certain the intensity of the light that comes here is above some threshold, then that position will be captured because the sensor at the tip of the light pen gets activated because of that intensity threshold, right? If the threshold is if the intensity is below that threshold, then we cannot capture the position on the screen. That is one limitation of the light pen. To give you an example, we can say if the light pen is more sensitive towards the brightness, then the darker the color, maybe we can have less photosensitivity with respect to the sensor. It's basically quite dependent on the sensor, the photo sensor, what we talk about. And then we know about joystick. Joystick is basically, this actually captures more probably the velocity. You guys would have used this joystick in gaming, right? This joystick, what you have used in gaming, apart from this, mostly these joysticks are used in as an input device, are used in situations like, or setups like aeroplane simulators, right? Flight simulators. In those places also it can be used. By moving this joystick left or right or front or back, you can capture the direction, as well as you can capture the motion with which you exert the force towards whichever the direction you want. And then we have input device called as spaceball. This spaceball is basically a static ball which is fixed over a stick. This spaceball will have pressure sensors, and the user can apply pressure on this static ball from different directions, like front, back, left, right, top or bottom, and based on the pressure, the amount of the input will be captured based on the pressure, how much you apply on this spaceball. I have not seen this spaceball so far. So if you guys have, any one of you have seen spacebars? Yeah, mouse is basically, yes, upside down trackball. Yes, Krishna, pretty much. So yeah, okay, now fine. So this is about the physical devices. Now moving ahead towards the logical devices. This logical devices, you see, let's take the typical interface of things that we have dealt with, be it scene or scanf, right? To the application program, all it concerns, or to your program, all it is concerned about is return of an integer value, that is input of some value, right? It doesn't matter if your input, you're giving this input from the physical keyboard or virtual keyboard that you have. It doesn't matter in what kind of input are you giving it, using a pointing device. It doesn't matter. It doesn't see what is the physical device behind the input that it receives, but all that matters for it is what is the nature of the data that it wants. So that is the kind of this is a simple example of the logical input, right? So it is basically characterized by the high level interface that the application program uses, not the physical characteristics of the device. So yeah, all that matters is a number should be returned to the program using whichever the physical device it be, right? Now looking at logical devices, there are two things that we can characterize, right, based on the logical inputs. One thing, the first thing is called the measurement. That is, the measurement can be the position or the velocity, or it can be the key that you have pressed, or whatever it may be. What is the measure that your program is going to receive, right? And then second thing is called as the time when the device returns the measure. The time when the device returns the measure, we can say it like as if, when do you capture the mouse position? When you click, or when you don't, you release the button, or when you click the button. So basically this we can call it as a trigger. We also call it as trigger, the time when the device returns the measurement. The measurement can be, if let us say you have percentage %s here, percentage %s is basically string, right? The measurement is basically the characters that you type. Everything will be stored in a buffer, okay? That is the measurement, what you have typed, the set of characters. But the time, when does it return to the when does it return that string to the application program? When you press the enter. So that is the time when you return the data back to your user program. So that is also called as the trigger. In the case what I give you an example with respect to string, the pressing of enter button is your trigger, or the time when you return your data. Let us say I am concerned about mouse click, right? So I want to capture position on the screen based on the mouse click. At that time, the position of the screen is the measurement, and the click of the button is the trigger, or the time when this measure will be returned to your program, right? So based on these two characteristics, we can actually define this. Any APIs classifies the logical inputs into 6 categories or 6 classes. This is quite important. The first type of class of input is called a string. The string is basically the user program receives the ASCII values, right, of whatever the input characters that you give. It captures the ASCII values behind them, and typically physical keyboard devices are used to capture this string logical input. And then we have locator. This locator is actually a device which captures the position in the world coordinates, so not in the screen coordinates. So if I have my scene, if I click on that scene, the mouse actually captures, the pointing device captures the screen position. However, your program or some kind of interface should convert that screen position into a world coordinate and then give it as an input to the locator as a data to the user program. That kind of input is called as a locator. This locator actually is captured using pointing device. However, this pointing device data should also, some extra effort should be made, or some kind of conversion from screen coordinates to world coordinates should take place before the world locator gives the data back to the user program. And then we have pick device. Pick device is, as I was explaining in the earlier example, let us say I have a triangle, I have a square, and then I have some kind of a rhombus in my scene, right? The pick device actually, if I click on this triangle, let us say these devices are associated with some kind of IDs 1, 2 and 3, okay? When I click on the triangle, the application program should receive the ID of this device, of this object where the mouse click happened. Now if I click on this rectangle, this application program should receive 2 as an input, and likewise for the rhombus. So basically it returns the identifier of an object in the display to the user program, right? Then we have choice. This choice actually allows user to select one out of many discrete number of options. These options need not to be numeric, it can be any different options. So basically it returns one selection from the user out of a list of n, right? Any example for choice? You would have a list of items, user selects one out of it and the application program receives it. Any example of it? You guys have used it. In fact, you guys have used it in OpenGL. Switch case, okay? From the user side, switch case, okay, good to an extent. We can. Drop down menus, yes, drop down menus, correct, Alicia. So basically we would have menus list n number of items, and out of these n number of items we select one item, right? And that item will be returned back to your application program. And then we have valuators. These valuators actually provides analog input to your user program, right? You can use some widgets like analog dials, dial kind of a thing. Using pointing device or any kind of input device, you can capture some kind of real value based on that analog widgets, and that kind of data will be given back to your application program. This is called as valuators. And then let us say the sixth class of logical input is stroke. Stroke is basically, it is implemented using the pointing device like mouse. Basically it captures the array of locations. The continuous array of locations will be given back to your application program. Now say for this application program, the projection what I am doing, the presentation what I am doing, it provides an device for me called as a pen, right? If I select this device called as pen, now see, I will click and hold and then drag it and then release my button. It writes a red line along the positions whichever I captured using my click and hold. Now this basically returned this activity of clicking and hold and dragging and leaving the mouse click button actually returned a series of screen positions to this software, MS Office, and that software actually use this locations to color it using red color. So this is one simple example of stroke input actually. Any doubts in stroke inputs or logical input classes? Alright. Moving forward, we will look at different types of input modes, or what are the modes using which the application program receives the data. As I was telling, the application program can receive the logical input, and that logical input is characterized by two things. One is called the measure and the other one is called the trigger. So the measure is what is the data or what actually the device returns to the application program, and then the trigger is when does the program receive the data, or when do you receive the measure. example of using a string input using scanf I gave, the enter button acts as the trigger, and the strings, the characters that you would have entered acts as the measure. Okay, so basically it acts as signal to your computer to read the measure, right? When you click a button, it's a signal to your computer to capture that position in your application program. It's basically like that. All right. So trigger is basically used to send a signal to your OS or to your application program through your OS, pressing a button or releasing a button or pressing a mouse key, all these things, right? And types of measures would be the position information or the ASCII codes of the keys that you would have pressed. That would be the measure. Now, using this trigger and measure, we can classify 3 different input modes. The first mode is called as request mode, and then we have sample mode, and the third one we have input mode. So this request mode, I was telling you an example of this scanf, right? That's basically a request mode. So whenever the trigger happened, the measure is captured, right? So the measure is not returned until the trigger is initiated. So measure process is dependent on the trigger process. Once you trigger it, the measure will be returned back to your program. So that's the idea of request mode. So to request and measure, you're supposed to kind of initiate a trigger. And then we have a sample mode. The sample mode is basically immediate. Whenever you execute an API call, it captures the image, right? You basically have some function. That function executes, and when it is executing, whatever the data would be, should be captured from whichever type of the input it is, it will just capture as it is, right? So the program requests for the immediate measure, and the measure would be given back from the OS to the program. This measure would be captured by the device and would be given to the OS. And then we have the third type of mode called as event mode. This event mode is very, very important. Now see, the sample mode or request mode are basically dependent on one device, meaning to say at a time we can deal with one input device. However, look at your flight simulators or probably your gaming scenarios. You might have to deal with multiple input devices or multiple types of interactions to multiple input devices at a single point of time, right? At that time, we can use this event mode actually, right? So this is mostly used when an environment has multiple input devices, and each device has its own trigger process and it has its own measure process. So you have keyboard input as well as mouse input in your game. So you can control the direction of the camera using the mouse, and you can probably fire ammunition using the keyboard. These kind of setups, both of them are involved in your logical input. Both of them have their own triggers and measures. At this setup, we go for an event-driven mode. And in this event-driven mode, what happens is, whenever a trigger is initiated, probably whenever a mouse is clicked or whenever some key is entered, right, an event gets registered or an event gets generated, right? And then when an event gets generated, the measure of that input device will be captured and stored in something called as an input queue or event queue. This event queue will be specific to different input devices. Okay. Now, when this program, if it is programmed to capture this input device, then it reads the measure from the queue. If it is not programmed to capture the input device, then it doesn't read this measure. So I'll tell you an example. Let us say you're playing a game. You have keyboard input, you have mouse input, both of them in your system, and your program is or your game is relying only on keyboard, not on mouse. Now, even the mouse click generates an event, and the position, I'm assuming the measure here is the position. The position will be enqueued in the event queue, right? And if the program is not designed to capture, and in the game that we are talking about, I told you already that the game doesn't use any mouse, so it ignores that measure. It doesn't use that measure because it is not programmed to capture the mouse input. Similarly, I would press some button, and pressing in the keyboard, when I press the button in the keyboard, the measure will be captured and it will be enqueued in the event queue. And the program would be designed, or the user program would be written such a way that it can tackle that measure. So it reads that measure and it acts on the input, whatever you give or whatever is read from the event queue. So that's the basic idea of event driven mode or event mode, right? So the measure is actually enqueued into the event queue with the identifier of the device. Mouse and keyboard, all of them have their own identifiers, and the event queue will be, the measure will be enqueued along with the identifier of the device. Now, if the queue is empty, then your application program will just wait. Okay, it will wait until some event occur. If it doesn't occur, it will just wait. If event occurs, and if that event, whatever event occurred, is to be considered by the program, then that measure will be captured by the program and it will act. If that event is not needed for this program, then it will just ignore that measure. To illustrate this scenario, I gave you an example of a game which uses keyboard but not mouse. Even if you click a mouse, it would have been enqueued, but your program ignores that measure captured. Of when you click a button in the keyboard, it would capture and it will process that input. So that's the type of mode. That is the basic principle behind the event mode. Any doubts on these three modes of inputs? Okay, now tell me, OpenGL, you in last class you learnt about handling mouse input, right? What kind of input mode is your OpenGL using? Is it request mode, sample mode, or event mode? Yes, it is event mode, right? So your application program, I'll explain it to you now, right? So there might be different kinds of event that might occur. So the kinds of event that might occur in your OpenGL, just an example, you might resize the window. That might be an event for your window in your OpenGL. You might expose the window, meaning to say, right now you see my browser is hidden, right? I can expose it by doing this. So right now my browser came forward, right? So my OpenGL graphics window could have been hidden in the background. By bringing it front, that window might come front. That is called as exposing, right? So that might happen. That is also an event. Mouse clicking one or more mouse buttons might trigger an event, right? Or just the motion of the mouse can be an event. I move my mouse like this without click, that might also be considered an event. Or to capture the data, the motion only when I click, that can also be an event in our OpenGL. Pressing or releasing a key can be an event. Idle case also can be an event, meaning to say non-event. No input device is giving an is active, that can also be an event. And the idle case is basically you define what to do when there are no events in the queue. We have a specific function to use this, what to do when there is no event occurring. Any idea what is the function that we use to deal with it? the idleness of the event queue? Which is the function? We just discussed this like a week ago. Wait. No. Okay, we use something called as spinning. We actually use that idleness to spin our cube, to give you an idea. Which function? Which function? Anyone? Idle, yeah, idle function. Glut idle function will be the function, yes. So, you see, OpenGL uses something called as callback mechanisms. Callback mechanism meaning to say, let us say your application program is concerned about mouse input. Clicking a mouse should do something. However, it is not concerned about keyboard input. In that case, you have to register a function, a user-defined mouse function, right? This user-defined function will have the code for handling the mouse measure, whatever you receive, how to handle that, how to process that you will have it here. However, this function, glut mouse function, is called as callback function. This callback function actually will be executed whenever an event of mouse click occurs. When mouse click occurs, mouse function will execute this user defined logic of how to handle that data, right? Let us, in this case, your program has only mouse event. It does not have a keyboard event, right? So you would not register your keyboard activity at all. Meaning to say, you will not have an callback function for keyboard activity. At that time, in your program, even if you press a key button, your program will not see any activity behind it. However, your measure would have been captured, but your program just ignores it because it doesn't know how to handle that keyboard measure. If mouse click happens, then it knows that this function has to be executed. So it will directly execute this function. And this function knows that the user has defined logic to process the measure whatever it has captured, and that according to user logic, this function will be this will process the key position, right? In our user logic in the cube program, we were least bothered about the position. However, we were bothered about the which button we click, right? So what happened was, whenever we clicked the button, this mouse function called the user defined mouse function, and in the user defined mouse function, I was setting my axis is equal to 0 or 1 or 2 based on which button I click. So that was my logic to handle the process measure. The measure in that case which I concerned was about which button I am clicking, not the position. Okay. So I hope you guys got the idea. Did you understand it? Please answer, people. Okay. Deep, are you here? Deep's not come today. Harshit Reddy, hi. So active Harshit Reddy is. So this is a callback function for mouse event. However, we have different event callback functions, The display activity can be registered using display func. Mouse activity can be registered using mouse func. Window reshape activity can be registered using reshape func, and keyboard activity can be registered using keyboard function. If there are no events, then I can register some activity whenever my there is no event in the program. That can be registered using an idle func. Using idle func, we were able to change the axis of the rotation in our cube rotation program, and we were able to rotate the cube, right? And then we have something called as motion func. This motion func basically captures the motion of the mouse when I click and hold and move, right? So it captures the motion. It's basically motion func captures the stroke input. And then I have something called as passive motion func. Passive motion func basically captures every position wherever I move my mouse. There is no trigger associated to it. The movement of the mouse itself is the trigger for it. I change the position, it captures that position. That's it. So that's the GLUT passive motion function. So we can use all these different event callback functions to register user logic to handle them, right? See, so far we have used something called as main loop, right? In our GLUT program or in our OpenGL program. This main loop actually puts our program into an infinite loop. Only way to terminate this infinite loop is to execute the exit 0 or quit function in C program, or to force close it by clicking on the close button in the window. That is, in the window you have this close button here, right? You can using this you can terminate the program. So these are the only ways for you to terminate an infinite loop, or else you cannot terminate your program if you enter the main loop once. Now in every loop right, your program looks into the event queue, and every event will capture, whenever an event occurs, it will capture the measure and it will put it in the event queue. And if GLUT some event would have registered in the event queue, the GLUT will execute the appropriate callback function if it is registered in the main using these functions, right? If it is not registered, then it will just ignore that measure. And if there is no callback is defined in the event, so if it is not registered, meaning to say, then that event is ignored, right? So this is exactly how our event registration works in our OpenGL. Now, to give you an example over here, I will show you a demo, small demo. Meanwhile, please answer your attendance. So you see, this is a simple triangle program. It has written a triangle on the screen. That's it. You see, I have just draw triangle I have done. That's all. And then in the display, I have registered only one event here called display function. So this display function has to be executed whenever display changes happen, or whenever display related activity or window related activity occurs. Let's see how many times it is executed. I will you print hi every time display function is executed. Now you see, once hi is printed, that means once I ran, my display is executed. Because window got created, my display is executed. Now I'll try to reposition or change the dimension of this window. See here, again an hi has been displayed, meaning to say display reran and the computation of the new scene according to this screen is done, and the display is basically mapped to the new window that is repositioned now, right? I will try to reposition it again, right? Basically, when you do this also, it should have called in the Windows system, it is not. If you do in the Linux system, if you send it to background and if you bring it to foreground, the display should have been executed. It is not executing in this Windows system. So you can see the effect of it by changing the dimension of this window. Again, the third time high has been executed. So it is sensing the display event and appropriately it is executing according to the user logic. What is the user logic? User logic is to define the triangle in the window that has been created. So that's the user logic. Any doubts so far? Did you understand the event registration and handling the event? Okay, so in today's program we will again be looking at cube. We will also try to control the camera. We will try to have a camera in the scene. We will see the cube in the afternoon today. We will see the cube in the perspective of the camera, right? We will change to reposition the camera and see the visualization according to the perspective of the camera, and we will also try to spin the cube. So in this course, you guys might better understand the event-driven approach of the input interaction in the OpenGL programming. Okay, so please ask doubts today. If you have any, if you get any doubts, please do not hesitate it, because this is very important even with respect to your mini project. Also, in your mini project, some kind of input interaction is must. Okay, keep that in your mind. It might be keyboard input or the mouse input. You are supposed to capture it and process it and do something. Okay, any doubts so far? If you have no doubts, then you guys can leave. Thank you.